Hi, folks. Welcome to the Daily Wrap. Robert Quigley for President. We're on the road to the White House. Please subscribe to the channel, put your comments below, your suggestions, tell us where we're right, tell us where we're wrong. Let's jump right in. This evening, we're going to talk about animal rights and the environment. The theme of the evening is essentially going to break down and show the consequences of extreme human selfishness. I hate to badger on about this point and sound like a lecturer, but on this point of environment and animal rights, we kind of need to lay out the facts, demonstrate what's going on across the country and the planet, and put forth some solutions to solve the problems. And we're also going to bring in a couple of headline news points from this week, just to kind of run parallel and show other examples of extreme, outrageous behavior that ultimately results in a lot of damage. So let's jump right in, folks. As everybody knows, I own four dogs and two cats, an outside cat and an inside cat. The dogs are Pomeranians, and the neighborhood is full of cats for reasons that one could imagine. But in my piece of the world, we love animals around here, all animals. So they're well looked after. But overall, the animals around the planet are struggling. They are literally struggling and fighting extinction. Let's look at the hurricane down in the southeastern part of the United States. Whether we realize it or not, because we're looking at the unbelievable amounts of property damage, destroyed buildings, houses, bridges, all the rest of it, what we're not seeing is the displacement of thousands of dogs and cats. They were separated from their owners. If they're lucky, they will wind up in shelter someplace. A handful may find their previous owners. Some may find new owners, but all in all, right alongside the human story, we have a heartbreaking tragedy for our pets. Let's not even talk about the wildlife, but they're suffering as well. Something to be cognizant of. If we can help, we should. We should donate money to the Humane Society. We should reach out to those animal shelters if you have the slightest need and offer help in any way possible. A heartbreaking picture came across the airways this week, and it's absolutely the perfect picture to describe humans' relationship with the animal kingdom. As it would happen, there was a whale that swam itself ever so gently up onto the back of a boat, and this whale was entangled in fishing nets and fishing twine, and it could not eat. One look at that picture, an observation of the facts of that picture, it was abundantly clear that this whale, an animal that humans think has no consciousness, doesn't think, doesn't reason, was asking those humans on that boat for help. There's no other reasonable explanation. That's exactly what was going on. So that kind of sets the stage, folks. Humans should be caretakers of both the animal world, the human world, and the plant world. And we are failing miserably in this responsibility. Let's take another example. Everyone's seen the pictures, surely, of state sized islands of plastic trash floating across the Pacific. There's no benefit in that, folks. Sure, a very small number of sea creatures may make those a home, but in reality, we are soiling the oceans and we are damaging our environment. Hundreds of animal species are going extinct, hundreds more are facing extinction. It's the same in the plant world. Hundreds are facing extinction. Us go further in our list of problems, and then we're eventually going to come to some solutions here in a moment. Let's take the Chinese and Korean behavior of eating dogs as a delicacy. Now, I know in the world of international relations that it's been custom in the past that one government, one country would not try so hard to influence the customary behavior of other folks in other parts of the world. Well, when the Quigley administration gets to the White House, that ancient rule will be brushed off to the dustbin. Of course, we are going to encourage the Koreans and the Chinese to cease their consumption of man's best friend. They don't need the protein. There's absolutely no reason to take Bowser, and put him on, put him on the dinner table. It just makes no sense. It's just another example of humans not properly looking after the planet. Let's look at a couple more examples of what I'm saying. Hunting. Well, I grew up in an outdoors family. But by the time I was 10 years old, I knew how to hunt and fish, camp, and all the rest of it. Woods were no stranger. That was 50 years ago. We live in a very different world today. All across the society, we see folks using hunting as an excuse to amass and keep a large number of weapons in their house. I'm not really trying to talk about the Second Amendment here because we do believe in gun rights. But what I'm talking about in this video is this senseless killing of animals in an environment where the animal population is depleting. Teddy Roosevelt said 110 years ago that in his estimation, he was living in a time when hunting as it is envisioned and in the hunter's mind is coming to an end. There are no more wild areas. There are no more wild terrains. There are woods here and there, even long stretches of the Appalachian Mountain or the Rocky Mountains. But by and large, wherever we go, we find food resources through our industrial food production. And of course, we find human populations, big, small, and tiny. Hunting is something that should be consigned to the history books. That's not a way to treat these animals that are facing extinction to begin with. Like I said, the Quigley administration, we support the Humane Society. We support clean oceans. We will do everything we can when we get to the White House to encourage plant-based foods. Plants are very easy to be regrown, to regenerate. They can be moved from one climate to the next. It's a much easier type of food to deal with. And ask any elephant. You don't need to eat steaks to be strong, healthy, or humongous if that's what you want in life. So we're all for plant-based foods, and the sooner the better. Now, what are some of the things that we must do? What are the solutions, basically? We must restock the world's oceans. We must put together programs where every living creature that is currently in the oceans, we must do everything we can to increase their numbers before it's too late. Because once they're gone, folks, they're gone. This is a point in time that we never want to arrive at. Not only that, we have to restock the rivers and streams and lakes all across America. We have to increase the amount of habitat available to animals across America. Now, on this issue, we can bring in the environment. We need natural ways of removing CO2 from the atmosphere. Nature has given us that tool. Humans have done a really good job of cutting down forests all across America, all across the world, all across cities, communities, suburbs. The Quigley administration will strongly advocate and suggest to every property owner and homeowner in this country to go out tomorrow and the next week and plant 10 new trees in their yards. Make them trees that grow like evergreen trees, that they're going to remove carbon dioxide from the air. They're going to live a long time. We need to plant trees next to sidewalks in cities. We need to reforest parts, if not all, of city greenland. Parks like Central Park in New York, for example, needs more trees. Every city has got their Central Park. Every neighborhood has their park. Very large pieces of open greenland that really aren't used that much. Or they can at least be surrounded by a perimeter of trees and not a fence, for example. And we can do this in our own homes. So we need to improve the habitat for the animals across the country and across the planet. And by doing so, we also can greenify the environment and provide a larger number of nature's very best engines to remove the CO2 from the atmosphere. So, very simple solutions conducted by millions upon millions of people will take us a long way in solving both the environment and animal rights problems. So, essentially, at this point, I'm hoping the voters are seeing the message that's coming across. On the one hand, we humans are very selfish creatures. We must change our ways. We must look at the neighborhood and the world we live in as being something that we take care of. We're caretakers, we're custodians. We're custodians and caretakers of the plants and animals that live here, as well as for future generations. Now, let's make a contrast with this very same theme. We're going to turn to a couple of news items for today. We learned this week that a handful of Republican attorney generals across the country have decided to go off and sue the Biden administration to stop the Biden administration's student loan forgiveness program. Wow. Surprise, surprise, surprise. Well, let's look at the numbers here just for a moment. And I want you to keep the whole discussion about animal rights and the environment in the background. But let's look at the student loan forgiveness program. Roughly speaking, Biden's student loan forgiveness program will benefit 49 million American borrowers that have struggled mightily with their worthless educations that was sold to them for a king's ransom. Now, these handful of Republican attorney generals essentially went to court and said the program was illegal. The will of the American people should not be followed because the will of the American people is illegal. That's what the Republicans are saying. Well, let's look at the exact number. Essentially, there are 770,000 borrowers that took out private loans, and the lenders on those private loans do not want to see the slightest loss in their ill-gotten revenue gains. So let's put these numbers into balance. On the one hand, we've got a program designed to benefit 49 million struggling borrowers. Of course, most of these people are going to be in disadvantaged communities. They're going to be in low income brackets. I mean, obviously, they wouldn't have a problem to begin with. Versus the 770,000 struggling borrowers that took out private loans. There is a phrase in humanity that goes like this: the needs of the many must always outweigh the needs of the few. Do you see the point that I'm making here, voters, supporters, friends? It's pure and simple human selfishness. And the consequences of this selfishness is destruction to the many. In the case of the environment, we destroy the environment. That is slow motion suicide. We are killing ourselves. There is no other accurate way to describe it. That is the indisputable fact. If we destroy the animal kingdom, that is another way of committing suicide. Again, it is an indisputable scientific fact. And those two things are happening. When we look at the 49 million student loan borrowers and the needs of a few lenders, we see this very same selfishness playing out in yet another arena of of our existence. It's a problem, folks. We step back from that one little bit and we realize, oh my gosh, we've gone down the wrong road. We must change. The court should never, ever have been given a right to overturn the will of the people. Now, at this moment in time, I'll refer to the viewers in the audience to the other videos I've made, but the Quigley campaign and the Quigley administration, we firmly believe that we must curtail some of the court's rights. It was a very bad idea, at least it's a bad idea today in our fast moving environment, to give the courts the power to strike down the will of the people. And that's exactly what the Republicans are trying to do with the student loans. And it plays out in many different areas. So this is another example of why we need to reform the court. Okay, let's pick up a couple more points. The hurricane that we've seen these couple days, Hurricane Ian, is a dreadful global warming, bad weather impact. I got some bad news for folks. I've reviewed the science. I've sat down for hours and hours and what seems like weeks and weeks and spoken to the experts in this field and looked at the data going back 30 years. We've plotted it on graphs. We've analyzed it. We've sliced and diced it. The bad weather events are going to become more frequent, more intense, and they're going to cause more damage. And it's all going to be happening on an exponential scale. We're not escaping this by doing nothing. We're not escaping this by burying our heads in the sand. We have solutions, the Quigley administration. We're going to implement those solutions when we get to the White House. We need your help to do these things. These are very big solutions to very big problems, and it requires a lot of hands on deck. This is not the time to sit back on your couches and in desk chairs and watch these videos and watch the news. This is the time to get involved. The writing's on the wall. If you don't see it yourself, if you're not willing to do the scientific data research that I'm telling you about, take my word for it. We're in trouble. As a planet, as a society, as a country, we must implement solutions. All right, folks. On that point, we will finish up with donations. As we've talked about before, every political campaign in America must operate with donations. We've got a long way to go to get to the White House. We need to raise $1 billion in the next 2.25 years. At this point in time, we've raised about $10 million, and we've got lots of donors on the sidelines that are ready to commit more money. But we need support from Jane and John and all the voters across the country to make this happen. If we don't change now, if we don't implement the solutions now, there will come a day when it really will be too late, and the future of this planet and the future of humanity will be a Mad Max existence. And for those of you who don't know Mad Max, it's a Hollywood movie. Google it, take a couple of clips off the internet, watch it. It is no place that anybody wants to be. And with that, folks, we'll call it a day. I hope everyone enjoys their weekend. We are on the road to the White House. We'll be back on Monday night at 8:30 with another live stream and discussion of the topics of the day. Until we meet again, all the best.